Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to an independent archive and museum. This is the collaboration between the Commoners Museums and the Deep South Museum and Archive also co-organized this event. Today we are at the fort. The fort is the space for change and change makers. We are located at Sukhumvit 55. And for today, the fort also supported the social change maker, human rights defender, and activists to utilize this space for your own activities or seminar or even like exhibitions. We also welcome private meeting in this event. You can use this space. And if anyone would like to use the fort's meeting, you can connect and contact the fort through our various social media or just walk into the fort's office. For today, I am very honored. Oh, sorry, I forget to invite myself. My name is 𝘠𝘩𝘢𝘪𝘭𝘢𝘶. I'm a communication specialist at Fortify Rights. Today, it is my greatest honor to share this forum with our specialists who have been working on the People's Museum and Archive. So today we are going to discuss how people can document and make archive of the commoners' histories and how can it end or help to stop the cultures of impunities in Thailand. And I would like to welcome our three panelists. The first one being Kun and the founders of Deep South Archive and Museums, as well as the founders of 6 October, คุณพัทรพรภูทอง or คุณอ้อ. And a round of applause for our panelists. Our next panelist is the founders of the Commoners Museums, as well as executive directors of iLaw Internet for the People, คุณอานนท์ ชวาลานันท์ or คุณแว่น. Chawala, apologies. I am just a director, not executive directors. Apologies. And our last panelist is researchers at the LGBTIQ Archive, Dr. คุณนฤพล ด้วงวิเศษ PhD. Today, we have been very honored to host our exciting panelists because I have been following our three panelists' work. So I would like to have our panelists to introduce how they start their archival activities or their musification activity. What are something that is missing? What are something that you can see or cannot see in the society that prompt you to start this kind of musification, starting from คุณพัทรพร. I think 10 years ago, I went to my higher education and like other Thai people, we enjoy visiting archives and museums. I didn't really understand about museum at the time. I did a thesis on comfort women since my advisor see that I am interested in museum conflict and conflict management. Therefore, my advisor invite me to go to Peace Museum in Seoul. It is a small museum. I think at the time, 10 years ago in Thailand, we usually do not hear something like Justice or Peace Museum. We can see the museum that talk about history of militarism, wars, or museum that glorify heroes and wars memorialization. Of course, we have the 14 October 1976 museum, but we can probably, for the general public, you may not be able to access the exhibition and archive. And that was my interest until I went to research another. I have a fellowship at Tokyo Museum for Peace, and I participate in my fellowship. And after I return, I think that we should have Peace Museum in Thailand after my return from Kyoto. But I host I host several discussions and seminars until I was invited to participate in the 6th October archive. You can go to like 6th October archive, and I met with Professor 𝘠𝘩𝘢 and other interesting persons that enable me to envision archival work and share different idea on museum and museification. And I see the possibilities of Peace Museum in Thailand, despite we're not going to have the structures or the facilities of the museum, but we can see the activity that can function like museum can pave the way to dialogue and create the segue to the museum culture in the Thai societies. So for you, Khun Patpon, you start from archiving the 6th October 1976, the 6th October massacre, and after that, you also shift to the archiving and documentation of human rights violation in the southern border province of Thailand. So these common memories or common histories of violence, why you think that they should be archived or they should be included in museumification? For the issue of the southern border province violence, I think when I did the peace research and also like archival activities in Bosnia, Herzegovina, Japan, and South Korea, I noted that usually the museum happened during the post-conflict phase. However, during the ongoing conflict and friction in the area, the ideas of museums or archives for justice, could that be possible? How could museumification and archive activities could be used as tool during the conflict process? I have been funded from the Thailand Research Fund at that time, like the Office of Thailand Research Fund. Apology for our funders. I 5 years ago we have been funded, and we did the research on different people in the area, like the southern border province, that collect the data and documentation, like Deep South Watch or the Cross Cultural Foundation, even like the Muslim Attorney Center Foundation. They have been doing very well in terms of documentation and data collection. And Professor Pa, or like Pimbalai, who is a designer, and Kun Katsara in the team, we are just the small part of the puzzles. It's just like the part of the puzzle in the area who would like to advocate for the history telling in a systematic way, as well as the communication from the southern border province area to the people in general. I will refer back to Kun Patpon in the second part. Let's talk to the Commoners Museum from Kun Anon or Kun Wan. I study histories, and I also enjoy museum visitings, and I also collect a lot of things. I collect things like World Cup, Coke, can, or like art toys, or like figures. At when I was at the university, I know a person from like the political archivist from the Netherlands, and I was hired by him. And at that time, I didn't really want to do about like our museum. After my master's degree, I start working with Thai law. After the coup d'etat, I went to the Richard protest since 2013, and I think like apart from the oral histories, the general situation of the protest and what the leaders say in that speech, I saw a lot of t-shirts, and that is what I see. Like there are a lot of protest t-shirts, and during the coup d'etats, I also collect a lot of information. For example, the trial observation of less majestic case, and I think like using the text-based communication, for example, the transcription of the protest or the trial observation log, using only text to tell the stories, have something missing. And that remind me about museumification, that do not really, like that do not enable other aspect of Siamese people's life. We see a lot of museums that talk about how people live, eat, conduct their life, but what have been deprived from the museum in Thailand is the political history. Therefore, that make me think about collecting information about the political activities archival. For example, the t-shirt, the symbolism, and the artifact that used to represent the ideologies and what people think in terms of the people's histories. I start like using my own monies that go to like collect stuff. I was a little bit shy to collect people's artifact, but later I think that this thing, like when civil society organization, they think about it as like something that they use like one time, and after that, at the end of the event, they discard it. But I think that these are the artifacts that tell story. If I don't ask for them, sometimes people are not pay attention to collect them as artifact or like as our collection. Something could be missing forever. Some artifact could be missing forever. And I think like now I'm going to be an Indiana Jones. I'm going to go and say like, can I have this vinyl sign? And that I start collecting these artifacts in 2018. Now, after I have several collection in, like the warehouse, it's just like storing the archival materials. But in order to tell different story and to help complement other sectors work, for example, teachers or like students who study from like text-based or like lecture-based, or even like you can see photos from the slideshow. But if you see the tangible material, you can see t-shirt and stuff. It can also help fulfilling the learning experience of other people. On the other hand, civil society organization, we can also help them with hosting exhibitions. So if that's any civil society organization that they would like to do an exhibition, the Commoners Museum provide with the artifact. We can help organizing like with the fort together with we can co-organize, or we can like lend some artifact for them to host their own exhibit. Kun Patpon talk about the historical viewpoint, like the traumatic past and traumatic histories, and Kun one talk about political history. Next, Professor Narupon, what kind of archival materials that you have collected pertaining the LGBTIQ people in the project called like the Thai Rainbow Archive? Can you please explain about your archive? And I think he is a pioneer actually, like Kun Og and Kun Wan start like 10, 15 years ago, but he collected the material I think like long times ago. I have been funded since 2009. I cannot calculate into Buddhist era, I think like and what did you do then at the time? Why do you decided to start the Rainbow Archive? I think Peter Jackson could talk about this because like it comes from Professor Peter Jackson's PhD's passion. When Peter Jackson was conducting the research in Thailand, I think in the 90s, in 1990s. At that time, he was in Thailand, and you can see like magazines of like men who have sex with men, or like gay magazine in the Sanam Luang main grounds, and he collect this magazine as his personal collection. Later, he think that it could contribute something academically, and we should digitize it. Therefore, Peter Jackson have collect the monies and have he think like we should get the funding from British his history museum. So the Princess Sirindhorn Anthropological Centers and ANU, Australian National University, have started like digitizing the collection. So British library said that the material have to be stored in Thailand and it cannot be moved to other countries. But for the digital archive, like on the server and file, can you explain why? I think the material should stay where they belong to. But for Peter Jackson's personal collection and others foreigners who have purchased as a personal collection, it can be stored in other countries because it's like personal archive. So I would like to ask you like why do you collect like gay, lesbian, transgenders magazine and materials? Why this is important? In Thailand, I think like the Thai people have perception that this magazine are pornographic materials, and many people have told me that the national history artifact of Thailand have obliterated the histories of workers or marginalized peoples and population. When you go to Thai museum, you can see the Thai national state narrative, very officials, very like nationalist, and it don't talk about the underground culture. Any negative things under the stage, I will see that as like dirty or even like detrimental to the Thai culture. That not promote the national identities that the Thai state's narrative are trying to officialize. And Professor Peter Jackson have not received any assistance from any Thai authorities. He used the money from the British libraries and our high own staff to scan like gay, lesbian, transgenders magazines, or like Anjari's newsletter. Anjari is a lesbian groups, and the span of these archives spanning from 1980s to like late 90s. early 2000. Of course, we have a lot of materials, but we do not have the budget to cover. So the materials cover only to the years, the decade of 2000. We decided to collect because like we love this kind of archive. It also have academic contribution for people who are interested to like the gender non-conforming population, the people who are not in the heterosexual spectrum can go to our archive. You can go to like British libraries and search like Thai Rainbow Archive, and then you can view and research our material. This material are still online, and you can download these archives. These magazines do not only have pornographic materials, but it also talk about what people perceive and think. For example, they write a letter to editors talking about the disappointment in their life, or that they were being suicidal, or the fact that they create their own communities. The June's or Mithuna magazine is the first or earliest movement for like to try to present the Thai gay population in a positive light. At that time, HIV/AIDS is much alive in Thailand, and many people said that AIDS is the disease for gay men, and try to present the society try to present it in a very homophobic narrative. But this magazine talk about solitude and loneliness of the men who have sex with men stories. That was kind of like sexual histories that we have. I think like I use a lot of material to write my paper in English several times, and that can help complement the missing part of the Thai history. Thank you very much. So these 3 alternative museum and archive can help to give back the humanity for the people who have been overlooked by the Thai society in general. Now let's go back to Kun Aw for the 6th October and the Southern Border Province Archive. What are in your collection, and how can this collection lead to something? If you are at the fort, on the upper floor, we also have the displays of these 3 panelists. They also share something that they have collect in the collection. Can you also talk about your collection? Okay, what did we have in our collection? Based on our ultimate goal, we would like to store we would like to keep everything about the 6th October 1996, like the artifact and everything's pertaining 6th October 1976, like as well as the artifact in the Southern Border Province. But we don't have funding and resources, and we don't have like the facilities or even like warehouse or the personnel to do that. So that would be the ultimate goal. But for me, for the 6th October museums project, we have several stuff to like showcase. For example, the red doll, which we asked for the donation of the red doll, which was the place where the 2 electricians who are also activists at Nakhon Pathom has been hanged at that red doll. After we have identified that artifact, we negotiated with the owner of the land to request for that red doll before it will, like be discarded as like scrap metals. And that is something that we try to collect as a part of our artifact collection. We also have like 6 October photos. We own those photos, and we also like borrows or buy the license as from the owners. And we start the Deep South archival project for the 3rd year. Of course, there are some like material limitation, but we have to identify the policy for our artifact and collection. For example, the memorialization of the people who have passed away from Tak Bai. Now we have like the archive of those who have left us, and the memorialization of their stories. So these are our collection. I think Anon can share with us regarding the material the materialities of our museum, which is difficult. We create a logbook, and then this artifact remain with the families. I have the chairs and the slingshot and panda hat. Interestingly, when I start this project, me and Professor Dam-Keung, one of the founders, have said that whenever we talk to the people, and especially when we talk to the families and the people who have been affected, and I ask like, what is the remaining thing that they have? Everybody would say like, no, I don't have anything. I don't store anything from the deceased. So I think like whether this is like the Muslim cultures or like the general people's that we are not going to keep something as memories of the people from the past. I think it's just initially it's about people don't want to keep things that remind them of the traumatic past. And on the other hand, it's also pertaining trust, or how we use these like artifacts like photos, coffee mugs, or even like a shirt. So we need to start to create trust. The first time, the second time, we can probably like do not get it. Sometimes we have to visit like 10 times before we can create a mutual understanding. They see the exhibition, and of course people start open up and share that they have something to share with us. So that leads to our answer, like, do they keep things? Yes, they keep a lot of things. For example, we have the project with the Sarajevo War Childhood Museum that they collect the childhood memory for people who have undergone wars, and they also include the collection from Thailand. For example, the Thai-Myanmar borders and the southern border province. This chair belonged to a boy 20 years ago. And what happened with the school have been like torchings, and a boy who was 10 years at the time, what he did when he know that the school has been torched is to grab a chair from a classroom back home. And you can see that there are like numbers written in white, the numbers of the registration, the official registration of the like schools materials. And panda hat, after the torching and the burning, like the children have been taken to Chiang Mai in order to kind of like pacify them. And the student get the panda hat and panda t-shirt from Chiang Mai. we have to kind of like talk to them. What do they think when they were taken to like visit to go to visit a zoo for like panda in Chiang Mai. And the last one is a slingshot. Is this There was an incident of the rampant shootings, mass shooting, searching and surrounding of the cordon in the area during the past 2 years. And the slingshot that this person have kept for over 20 years now, this person is over 30 years old. And the fact that he kept this slingshot, boys go to like hunt and go to the field and forest together. During the violence, they were forbidden to go out, and they cannot go out. They just like stay in the house. Only like the elderly who still go to mosque about, like 8 p.m. After the searching and surrounding and mass shooting of the cordon, boys cannot go out and play anymore. So these are the artifacts that tell stories of how people undergo the violence in the southern border province. Now let's go back to the the Commoners Museum. What are the difficulties of storing those artifacts? There are several keywords from Khun Patpon, trust and narratives, oral histories. These two things also are also related to my work. Her work was the traumatic past and traumatic memories, which is like the memories of violence. So when she talked to people and asked for the people in the conflict area to contribute something, most of the time from the disease, this is it's like challenging comparing to me, because usually when you talk about the commoners, the commoner is a broad term. It's us. And of course, there should be like main focus, but my main focus, I try to kind of like use it to kind of like know, to understand what have been in the collection of the elite culture. For example, ancient artifact about the royal family, the king, or like the parliament's the parliament's museum that probably should talk about the political history of Thailand before the Siamese revolution. I try to go to kind of like get the first declaration of the People's Party. I don't know whether they have display or not, but when the governments have the resource to do that, what we do is to identify the missing part. We're not going to counter what the government would say, like, oh, this is wrong, this is not true. Let's say you have one set of artifacts, you have one set of historical material. We also have another side of the history, like the history in the closet. When you go to different protests, especially like big protests like the PDRC, the red shirt, etc. You can see a lot of history in the closet. You see a lot of t-shirt. So you have probably like one print. Some people like yellow shirt, they also have like the yellow shirt collection. When this t-shirt go to different household, it's personal history. But when people collectively wear the same style of t-shirt, it's a collective history. it shows the collective sentiment and collective symbolism. So I actually like collect different objects. Normally I have t-shirt because it's easy to collect and there are wide varieties of t-shirt. And I also collect statement, press release, or even the flyers. The Ford said they want like t-shirt for the backdrop. So these are the t-shirt, and they also request some small exhibition. So I think like what I should present as the, like as a part of the exhibition. I think like, oh, we have like the flyers for the election campaign of last year. So that is 1 year anniversary of the election. I've tried to organize into like the government parties and the opposition parties. You can watch like on the upper floor, and our page will also show the photos. We try to shape it as like two planes clashing. So these are something that you did do not think about it as having a historical value, but they are a historical object. If you go to a protest, you think like, and probably you have like t-shirt, and what are the memory associated to that t-shirt when you wore that t-shirt and go to the protest. These are like the missing oral history that people may not register or even like record it. Of course, we have different dimension of our life. You work as workers or you own companies, but you can be fathers, children, and the different interaction that we have with the state as citizen or as political actors who have some ideas toward a certain political events, whether you agree or disagree. This is something that our museum try to collect, and we have like the poster, the signage for like the march. And the same issue when you do the contemporary thing, we have a lot of protests, right? So I try to take like food photos and to do like digital archive. And the other two things, objects that are difficult to store is intangible object. For example, our online materials, the political memes that I would like to collect it. And I used to do like the online political meme. I work with a professor our from like Phayao universities. This is very difficult, right? To collect like online memes and graffitis. Like graffiti on the road or on the public places. When you go to Ratchathmnon, when you have the People's PAD, the People's Alliance for Democracy, there are a lot of memes and graffitis. And the Commoners Museum are just like the small organization, may not be an organization. We are just like a small node in the society that are trying to like collect things. And I also would like to ask people in the civil societies and people who organize protests. On one hand, apart from like your ad hoc work is how to archive your activism. For example, you can store what you use in your campaign, because in the future, I think that could be useful. You can learn from it. Or if the government provides different information in which you think that it contradicts what you have, we can have like a solid evidence and material to counter the state's narrative. And last issue that I would like to talk is about trust. This is not going to be easy for people who donate stuff. For me, it would be easier because like I can just prove that the People's Museum have our own collection. I just start from like to 2018. These are not things that the objects that are available every day in the everyday life. And if you dedicate it, people would say like, okay, if you have this museum, they donate. They come to see me and donate from like our registered aunties. I think this is quite challenging. And what we cannot do is like when the time has passed and this object will disappear forever. So we have to rest against the time. And some object or some artifact have different story. For example, if you are not in that context, they would think like, oh, it's just a chair, it's just a t-shirt. You need to caption it, to explain it, why it matters, why this is important. Object and stories have to go together so it can communicate effectively and with more impact. You can see like the flyers, the flyer that act as like promises from the political parties to the people. And of course, the result from the election also show what people think or what they need. And that could be like one side of the history. And I would like to go to Professor 𝘚𝘩𝘭𝘢𝘪𝘭𝘢 from Thai Rainbow Archive. Based on your online archive, I think like you have like over 100 of objects in your collection. Can you explain why did you collect it? I try to collect everything, you know, like of the transgenders, LGBTQ archive. I collect as much as possible. Sometimes I go to like old books shop at 𝘗𝘗 malls or like 𝘗𝘗 market. Some people also like donate their personal collection. After I have digitized it, I found that surprisingly and even shockingly, when I want to upload the digitized materials, no organization that would like to keep these physical objects. I talked to Peters, Jackson, and maybe because they don't have enough personnel who understand about archive. And they think like, okay, it's a waste of my space and I don't have any place to store it, something like that. I dropped something at Rainbow Sky. It took me some time to convince them, you know, like to start in their warehouse. They didn't make any archive of it and no like no other use from that apart from like keeping in the Rainbow Skies archive. This project actually ended in 2021. No, sorry, 2011. 10 years have passed, and I feel sad that these physical objects, physical material are kept in warehouse. Now I work at the 𝘗𝘩𝘢𝘪 Anthropological Centers. I want to redo this archive, but I also have like my own regular works. This is something that I also don't like. I want to do like this archive, but as a government officer, there's something that I have to do, right? One day I think like Peters go to talk to the directors of the 𝘗𝘩𝘢𝘪 Anthropological Centers to ask the material to be stored in the 𝘗𝘩𝘢𝘪 Anthropological Centers. And we as the government organization that provide a voice for the marginalized population should, you know, like supposed to allow this collection. But one of our past collectors feel quite uncomfortable to store this collection because the director put doubt whether these are like pornos. When the material has been branded as like pornographic material. I don't have anywhere to go, like the anthropological centers that try to provide a voice to the people, like do not keep the space for the marginalized people. We don't have the material for like the place to store the material for LGBTQ people. It is like kind of like the marginalized of the marginalized of the marginalized. Despite even though the societies are now like open to the LGBT, yeah, there are LGBTQ people who go to protest, but I think like the issue of LGBTQians is more marginalized than like workers, like people. There are people who demand equality. For example, the marriage equalities movement in the protest. Do you think that you can kind of like connect it with the political movement? I think based on the government budget, no way. That it is not in the government's budget priorities. There are no LGBTQ or gender diversity agendas in the higher education in department. They probably talk about like series Y Yayoi series. I think that is commercialization business. Because the people who want to do the Yayoi or Yuri stories try to commercialize rather than to talk about the equalities or gender equalities. The Thai science research and innovation also do not provide any kind of but fiscal budget support. So since you have stored the materials or like LGBT, how that can contribute to equalities, especially for people who don't know about LGBTIQ people. I think we need to recognize genders, identities, and difference. That is the first step to equalities. Sometimes we don't have to demand equalities if people are educated to accept the difference. You don't need to talk about the right if the Thai societies are kind of like enlightened and people knows about histories, the non-mainstream histories on like the right of the ethnic people, migrant workers, sex workers, which of course is only represent human differences. And these are the things that happen all the times in throughout our human history. But our education focus on economic development, job securities, but people hate others more and more. So I don't know what happened with the Ministry of Education. This is an issue that have been discussed in many forums, like kind of like how can we equip people to live in the diverse 21st centuries. And of course we should be open minded. We should have a good mindset that tolerate the difference without thinking that all gross, dirty, I cannot tolerate this. People are people, and you should not think that they are kind of like ugly for some or like abhorring for something. When the Ford organized this seminar, one of the things that we would like to promote is to inspire different peoples, especially the general public. As Kun Patpon and our three panelists said, that they are small part of the mechanism in the greater society. So for other people, if you these are like quite a crime personal story. It's like Kun Ahn and Kun Wan start from like personal resources, and of course Professor Narupon also used his own resources initially. So now for the general public, if they would like to collect this kind of histories of the small people or the marginalized people, the history of the small folk, so how can What would be your recommendation? If we have like the materials or the objects in the everyday life, you can collect anything that you want, but the people have to have like passion and dedication. But sometimes dedication could be faced with like hurdles and obstacles. For example, you cannot pay for that for all of your life using your personal fund. Like we have to eat, we have to live, and I think personally everybody have passions and they have contributed to the societies. And the people who have that start their own personal collection should want a Nobel Prize for that because of the history of that dedication, and this history should not be forgotten. For example, the suffering from the religious conflict or political ideologies, which we should not only have like the state install ideologies of democracy. I think we should have diversities of of democracy, right? When you have the passion, how can you continue your passions with um with these structures, regardless of the memory that you store, whether it's traumatic part or not? I think in school, in universities, or in learning sectors agencies, you probably do not question about these um, memories. I think they want to do the have just create the learning in an individualistic way and just make people happy. But we don't really talk about creating general learning for the societies. I mean, like these people are working on how on their own personal passion, but how can we create it the general public greater good is the other different thing. I went to a museum that was generated by the people. For example, I go to like football museums, Thai footballers museum, because it's like private sectors. I think, oh, what a pity, all the staff have been kept in, like small area. So football is something that is not about conflict. It is something that are easy to sell. You can organize an area in Supacharasai or Rashmangala Stadium. I feel kind of like bad for it, and that is easy to sell or easy to commercialize stuff. When we go to, like the workers museum, that would even be more difficult. But I think we also have like some positive things. Some people who um cannot keep it, like they will kind of like go donate to other places. Like I have like the flyers and football match ticket. I know that it would be kind of like useful for us, and I donated to football museums. And some red shirt auntie also donate. And sometimes I go to see them, I say like, hey, I bring your t-shirt for the exhibition. I think there are also some people who bring like the flyers in Bangkok for like Bangkok governor's election. She collect it and said like you can come and pick up the flyers for like the bigger scale. I think if you work in a political movement, I went to the south in Surat Thani, and for like the Lalet Pesong, they have a long histories of um their struggle. I think like I told them that you can kind of like have your own archive. You don't really have to talk about the big museum with a big M. You can do it as learning process, and what we can do in the future. But if there is any organization that can collect it, you think about it as the object with different different histories, and these are something that should not be kept in the storage or in the warehouse. These are these are the object with their own stories. So you try to display it and also like tell the histories. I have met a monks who collect like the one brand of like 𝘠𝘪 detergents. So that can show people. He collect those like detergent bags, or there's another like monks who collect like antiques from different 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 ancients or like deserted temples, and that was about the passion. And now he this monk have a big kind of like building to store it. This is about the the passion, the individual passion, and what should we do next. At least when you go to the museum, what you can do is like museum use a lot of um museum use a lot of resources. So if you go to the museum, I think like we don't have the museum that only show fact, but I think there are a lot of fact. I didn't say that, oh, you distort it, but when you display something and this and ignore other thing, it construct different kind of narrative. But once people walk out of that, you can see the different form of ideologies that are kind of like managed, and people can start to think, like government museums are subsidized. Museum is not an income generation, but of course, in terms of ideologies, it works. So people can give small contribution or donation, 10 baht, 20 baht in your donation box. Like when Kun Ah organized, like an event, she have to pay like a million. So when you want to do a good exhibition, it costs a lot. You can donate it, or you can contribute your object or your artifact. You don't want to live with that memory anymore, and you can donate to like other museums irrelevant to your collections, and that can be a small start for you. I think like I cannot dream big, but now, but we can dream bigger. And finally, I think there will be a way, could be a segue for you to do something bigger. Uh, could all have conduct the traumatic part and memories, and if you would like to do some things about the distant part, how can you start? Professor Narupon and Wan have said how we can start, and I think that is quite relevant to me as well. When you work with traumatic memories and traumatic histories, there are many things that you have to think about, like accessing the information. When you talk to people, you can find it on the internet, because I have completed two um two exhibition. It's not about storing information, but I think it is something that we keep objects in storerooms, but how can we communicate to the community at large? And when you want to communicate something, for example, the 6th October 1979 museum project, we don't want to communicate to our friend. For example, I don't want to communicate to one, I don't want to communicate to our friend, that people that, like, think different than us, or the general public, or on the other side of the ideological spectrum. We would like to communicate to those people. And for example, at the SAC exhibition, I would like to communicate what have been happening to the society at large. What are the face of the affected people? What are the face of the sons and daughters who have lost their loved one? What are their memories? What are their injustice that happened to them? And these are the different group of people that we would like to communicate. But one of the common thing is how we should communicate, and of course it require a big investment. For example, I I want I did a 6th October. I want to see like big exhibition like that, and thanks to Kun Ben, who design this good exhibition, which is very expensive. I mean, like it's stunning. It's violence. It also violence and stunning. But it take in the consideration of like the aesthetic, if not beauty. We still owe, like the about 1 million. If you would like to contribute, you can contribute to like 6 October 1976 project. Like, because that exhibition still costs us like 1 million baht, and we still owe people 1 million baht. And that is the cost. How can we get the cost? How otherwise it's going to be like personal, like burden or responsibility is going to wear people down. People would just think like, oh, I should not be doing this stuff anymore, like, because it takes so heavy toll on us. Sometimes I think like I should like retire and play with my cat, or continue working, because at the end of the day, it costs a lot. And of course, at the end of the day, what you get from what you have been doing. So I try to kind of like ask myself at the end of the day, what do I get from like doing this thing? But of course, there are some family that, oh, we store this photos of my sister. Like 𝘗𝘠𝘢𝘪 said, she stored the photos of like her brothers, elder brothers who keep these photos and waiting for the photo to be displayed. I now understand what is the point of doing this work. I think at the end of the day, to communicate about the abnormalities in Thailand and the history of violence need to be communicated. It can, I think, like created the change and also make people start asking questions. By questioning the history and the representation of history in Thailand, I think that would be enough. If they come to my exhibition. The collection is for equalities and also to show the histories of the general peoples and the history that are ignored by the government. And hopefully to bring justice in the future, or that could create like a learning opportunities for other peoples. This is how the alternative histories have contributed. So now we will open the floor for our audience, online, and please introduce yourself before asking question. We will also accept question from online, so you can just type your question. My name is Putani Kankan. I am a director at the Ford. Thank you very much for such an enlightening and entertaining session today. I would like to exchange that when you go to Professor 𝘠𝘠𝘀𝘭𝘢𝘪𝘭𝘢, it takes us back to time. At that time, these are historical documents. 20 years ago, I think like the discussion about LGBT is new in Thailand. The society's exception of the LGBT peoples in Thailand are still low. And interestingly, by presenting these two magazines and histories, it reminds us what has been happening at that time. And now the LGBT issues, like have made some progress. And you can see the pathway from the magazine to the present. Unfortunately, even though you have like Yayoi movies or like novels, it is the continuation of the histories and also the freedom of expression in that area. And you can see the shift and the movement of those stories. So I don't know how can we continue from Professor 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘪𝘭𝘢𝘪𝘭𝘢's archive. So when you store those histories and memories, we can probably like see the continuation. As for Kun Wan and Kun 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘪𝘭𝘢𝘪, I think you talk about the gross happiness. I think we focus on personal happiness. Everybody have iPhone, everybody have own TV. They can choose their own pathway to enjoy happiness. So when you have the museum, the museum can contribute to like the gross or the collective happiness is something that is kind of like collective. People can see that the ideas can be kept, and people who experience a traumatic past can see that they are not alone. It's kind of like healing for them. I think the collective happiness idea is quite important. And one of the things that I would like to share with all of you is to talk about the litmus papers of freedom. When we allow people to collect this thing in the society, for example, with Thailand in comparison to other countries, you can see those collection as the litmus test of the societies. And many people can see that there are like obstacles in like government store one thing, we store other things, and we collect other things. So what do you think about the collectiveness of the societies and the way forward for the Thai societies in terms of this collection and the freedom of collecting such collection? Do you see any connection, or these things are not relevant at all in terms of the freedom in the societies and your personal collection? When I shoot a collection for an exhibition, I think like, okay, this I need this for in the collection, and I think like, no, I shouldn't go, or I shouldn't put this collection into display. There are some people who like to borrow something. I let them borrow it with a logo, but for some collection, I say like, I can lend my collection, but don't mention my name. That would be like such events. The display of the collection is a choice. When you have to choose, there is some power. For example, the power of my decision to display or not to display something in a collection. I have to think about the friction or something that may happen against me. Would that be okay? Would that create something negative or detrimental? Sometimes we have to wait and see so that the society is ready for such collection. But of course, in a positive light, in the future, if the society is more open, like other countries also display traumatic parts for for learning process, that we are not going to repeat it again. Like the principle of musification is to ensure non-repetition, right? In Thailand, the society is quite close, but it's not quite open also. When you touch upon the conflict is not only about political conflict, you know, like it can be like gender identity conflict or like sexual expression conflict. This is something that the society may not crystallize or agree. Don't talk about it so that we don't fight. I think it is an important mindset actually. If the world actually change, we will change. If the mindset of the people change, you don't really have to agree with the object or the way that the curators display that object. You can criticize that, but at least you have to allow the space, engage in a civilized argument or conversation. It can create a learning opportunity for Thailand. I don't know whether I have answered your question, by the way. I think in Thailand, even though I talk about traumatic past, I can, you know, like display my collections. Of course, there are something between the line. Something between the line, but you have to read between the line, but it's still okay. But 6 October project have never been funded by government agencies and of course like international funders. There are many funders visited our and there are many international funders that like ask us to like to ask us for like private viewing. They said they are very much interested, but why they don't fund us? Why they don't fund this kind of project? I think, is this the answer in itself? That the Thai societies probably do not give the space to support and also to communicate about this issue. And that is kind of like the test in itself, how the Thai people are, how the Thai society enable or disable this issue. I was invited to the Thai Museum event. I have been invited by the fine art department. We are happy to work with government. I was invited to the fine art department Thai museum there, the non-museum museums. Like I hope that one day we can collaborate more with government agencies, especially the parliament. The parliament museum, they have the mandate to promote the learning about like the constitutional monarchies. It have nothing against. I think it can have a good effect though. Like we're not going to destroy that narrative. Our museum just offer a different perspective so people can see more and can see the different angle and can also see the different set of narratives and stories, which like we are not their enemies and we don't want to be their enemies. We just want to kind of like collaborate with them. I think Thai society is quite hypocrite. For example, if you see like the Y stories or like Y series, it as a part of the soft power, but it's already superficial. It's not the freedoms. It's not the freedom from people learning to tolerate with LGBTIQ against people. You just commercialize men's sex. You you capitalize gay sex, then the money will go to big companies, and that the money have been observed without contributing to sexual and sexual expression freedoms. And how can we address these issues? I'm old, like I'm going to retire soon. So when I see kind of like the 20 years national strategies that not talk about freedoms, it talk about how to make Thai people live in or thrive in 20th centuries by being ultra capitalism. And that is the only thing I see. If that is the histories, when to I talk to those people, they use the economic mindset, whatever whatever that they think like, okay, we cannot sell, then you don't get funding. Instead, the societies ignore what makes us human, what makes us human. But we think about ranking, economic benefit, economic competition is not for, like the mass. Economic progress is for the few or the elite. Okay, we can entertain more question now. Good, good afternoon. My name is Pai. I hope my question is simple. I want to know, like, basically, like, the cost of keeping your archive in a good condition. How much would we have to pay for, like, maintaining our archive? Not going to say, like, if you want it to be stored for, like, generally it would cost something, but if you want it for a long time, like, we cannot afford, like, for example, newspaper, paper-based archive on the 6, 7, 8, 9 um October,คุณชมพล to my have collect it since his younger brother died. So he keep from the newspaper from like 24 of June to October, and he donated to us. And he think that we could keep this newspaper, but the newspaper which have been folded in a paper box, we cannot do that, right? According to archival principle, we need to hang it. It need to be in a temperature and humidity control rooms if you want to do it decently, but we cannot afford clothes, clothing, t-shirt in the next 10 or 20 years. We cannot hang it like this. We need to kind of like lay flat. Is it true? Yes. Photos from film, it have to be stored in like acid free envelope. Otherwise, the photo will degrade. So the cost would be tremendous, but I don't know the number exactly. But we need to leave it at Thammasat University archive because they have temperature control room, right? The cost is, I think, a lot. I cannot tell you, but if we can do it at the bare minimum, we need to like save enough. So please contribute and donate if you can. If you work like in a, if I know like the people who work in a real archive um industry, or like the curators will hit me in the face and beat me because this is a poor job of keeping our object. I hope that as long as I live, don't let this object be destroyed. I keep it in plastic box with like anti-moth, with mothball. But if it's useful, then we can keep it for a long time and let the people in the future worry about it, because we don't have enough capacity to do whatever we can do as a national archive, like the glass box, temperature control rooms. We try to take photos and digitize them as much as possible, even though we cannot see the real object. But for something, you can probably like do it with photos. For example, the Daniel's shirt with blood stain. I keep it as an evidence of violence, or like political violence. At that time, he was political active in 2019, like when they do the campaign for like the senators not to vote for the not to vote for the to vote for the prime minister. I remember that Indira Gandhi's museum also store like the clothes, the bloodstone clothes, and I know that there is a special way to preserve the bloodstained clothes, not just like just keep it in envelope with like um anti humidity gel in it. I think I don't look for a long shot. As good as I can get, I think 5 or 10 years is enough. I would appreciate funding. I think in terms of activity budget, we can do, but we cannot buy stuff. For example, second-hand books that we can like buy. I will buy. But sometimes some people sell, like the record that invite people to go to election. I cannot buy it. I cannot kind of like buy this record from the public relation department. So you can donate your objects and your money to. I try to seek collaboration with different people, like doing the workshop, like with teachers. Some teacher have an interesting idea. For example, a teacher said that why don't you ask the student to do like board game? What do you think about? Should you have student to check the flyer for election campaign, and the student can do the board game to form a government based on information from the flyers. You can also contribute money. Normally, I don't charge money for my display or collection, but you can come to visit us, donate us. If there's no people who watch this seminar today, I would feel a little bit disheartened, like because you have spent your time to be with us, and it's also give us a big encouragement so that we can do the next step. I think what we can do is we can do the papers. If the two of you would like to contribute like some like papers, and we would like to help channel these stories to other people. In terms of the academic pursuit, I think we can communicate this useful idea to the public. If you go to the 𝘐𝘯𝘪𝘭𝘢𝘪 anthropological centers, you can see stories like this is a little bit academic, but we have like story, and I agree with the budget. That I think this is a common issue for all of us. We will entertain one last question. One last question. My name is Spark. I think many people talk about audience and how to communicate with audience. I think about the museum going cultures. In Thailand, we don't have a strong museum going cultures. When you go to other countries, there's a cultivation of museum going cultures. Like in the afternoon, you can walk to a museums, and in Thailand, museum usually like want to invite people, like sometimes you have like standees and people can go and check in, but that is not the main issues of museum. It's not really like cultivating museum going culture. So how can we promote museum cultures? If they want to go to kind of like the private museum, alternative museum, or even the commoners museum or archive, how can we promote people going to more museums? what we are trying to promote for like 6 October, we talk to universities and schools. We kind of like invite people from schools and universities. We have like group viewing, usually for like high school, not middle school. We would have, like a tour for students. I think it has been quite successful, but I would like to invite you to like in Sarajevo, you have the museum that talk about violence, and 80% of people are foreigner, not local people. People said, and then like that, the people in Sarajevo museum said that people don't want to view their stories. So that has been like 30 years ago. But people who are like in their 40s remembers what happened. So they don't want their children or their grandchildren to go to the museum in Sarajevo. And that's sad. And in Thailand, when I study about the possibility of peace museum in the south, I talked to the villagers after I conduct a workshop. They would say like, I don't want to have peace museum or a museum like this in the area. Who are going to be the audience? They said like, oh, they want it in Bangkok or in other places. We want people in Bangkok to know what is happening in our community. So it's just quite challenging to attract people and to make them know that, okay, these are objects, these are photos, these are design and exhibition that the work behind the scene, like the human resources, the personnel, the money, the sweat and labor of love contribute to the exhibition. I think this is the challenges that apart from your presence that we really appreciate, and I think like we really appreciate your presence to our exhibition, and the values of the exhibition can be perceived by the people, and our effort is perceived by our audience. Apart from that, how can the society contribute? I'm actually not very, I'm not really serious about like monies, but because I stand next to, like donation box, I observe how people put in the donation box. I can see like student contributes like 20 baht, 20, 50 baht. They don't have income, but for elder people, like the working class people, um, the professional people, I can write you an academic papers about people putting money in the donation box, like the professional people, the people who are like the same generation as our subject in October's museums. I want to create the awareness and appreciation of how people work in museums and archives. And our two projects, like people work on a voluntary basis, they are not paid. Like the team are not paid. Just like when, right? He 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 worked for free. So most of the time, museum is not profit-seeking activities, right? So, and that lead to mental support, financial support, and make sure that the project can survive. And that is one thing that we try to address this issue, but I think like for now we have not been successful. And of museum is not a profit-seeking activity, but of course it costs a lot. If you can support for not for our project, I think like there are small museums that they don't charge you for like visiting, just 10 baht or 20 baht donation, as much as you can, you know, like now you pay 200 baht for movie, for a movie, right? The movie is not just like putting object on display. We have to research, we have to curate, we have to go and get stuff. The world revolves around money. Is the neoliberalism, capitalism world. Like we may not think about it, but of course, everything have a cost. And of course, government have been supported or like subsidize their museum. Their local museum that is important to talk about local histories, and that local history are important. So when there are like tourists and visitors, you can sell. And but sometimes you think like it's free, and people forget that you can contribute to the archive and museum movement. So I would like to turn it around. Of course, museum is free, but please think about like make a small contribution. Whenever you go to a temple, you make a small contribution or merit. A museum use a lot of effort to research, to preserve our object. Whenever I go to museum, like even small museum, I contribute 10 baht or like 20 baht. Or you can buy souvenir. I went to like Thai football museum, and they have like, they don't have budget, so they have to raise their own funds. So you can buy souvenir like 300 baht. So I can have like the female Thai female football team who went to like Canadian World Cup, female Women's World Cup. So whatever small contribution you can make, you can buy something you like, or you can contribute to the donation box, and that can help to for like footing the bill. And for the audienceships, I think this is a question that we have to make people think that, oh, we are forced to go to like museums or to watch like ancient artifact in the National Museum. I think the National Museum also make kind of like the more user-friendly exhibition. For example, during the Halloween, you have like the random gazapong art toys, and you talk about ghosts. These are not the traditional thing, you know, to tell in a former palace. Of course, the Department of Fine Arts is conservative, but they try to do some things. They try to talk about the different dimensions that are friendly to the people, apart from glorifying the past of like the royal dynasty. So that can make people revisit the museum that they have visited for different times. So exhibitors also have their own challenges to attract people to the museum, to find like different narrative. Oh, I have seen this t-shirt before, but with a new narrative, but with a new story, with an untold story regarding this t-shirt. That is a challenge for like curators and exhibitors. But I also would like to invite you, if you are happy with our work, please give us small support one way or the other, so that we can survive for a long time, and that we can survive in the long run as well. Museum is actually a colonial past. Like the colonizer collect artifacts and objects and bring it to their countries and showcase it to to well-to-do people to visit museums. So that was kind of like elite ideas of museum. And this idea of museum of collection spread all over the world. The rich people try to like create that museum by showcasing the significant rare item objects. Some people even have like private collection. Since since museums have been decolonized, do Thai societies decolonize our museum too? For example, when Thai school brings students to museum, we take them to colonialism museum. We didn't teach them to question about the display, the objects, why is it, where was it from, whether this have kind of like outer nationalism base. This is degrade other people. Is this object degrade other people? Because the story that have been written in the caption is very much one-sided. So it reflects the cultures that do not encourage cultural thinking. People consume national heritage or some, like some significant object that they have not seen before. How can we develop the new perspective and critical thinkings and put the critical lens to the others and also question what they have learned? I think it's also about our pedagogical aspect in Thailand. In the Western countries, of course, because they are colonizer, they have a lot of violation that they did with third world, for example, like the Nazi museum, the Holocaust museum, like the zone of interest. At the end of this zone of interest, an Academy Award winning foreign films, you can see clothing from the Jewish people, and that was the like traumatic past of German. Do Thai people like discuss our traumatic past like publicly? I think now the trend for the contemporary museum in Europe, even art museum, they try to open their own wounds, like the question, the perspective for colonizer, and try to educate the people about the colonizers' issues. I think the Paris Anthropological Museums is located from on like located on humans, on a former human zoo, and because a human zoo is the place where they display human, like rare human collection from the perspective of colonizers. And now the Paris Anthropological Museum present an alternative by criticizing that problematic past by creating a Paris anthropological zoos. I'm sorry, Paris anthropological museums, and criticize the way of displaying as a colonizer in the past. I have not know about 6 October because I was born in 1991. And thanks to your exhibition, I would like to encourage you to continue your activity. It's having enlightening for me who have not born in that generation. And now in the Thai societies, we talk about the marriage equality thanks to Professor 𝘠𝘠𝘭𝘢𝘠 and Peter Jackson's collections. And Dr. Jackson's collection enable us to see what people have been sacrificed for this freedom during the past decade. And I think that we have not been talking enough about the sacrifice and what people from LGBTQ people have suffered. And what they have lost before we have the marriage equality movement. It's about time that we need to wrap up this session. Thank you very much for our panelists. At first, I think like there are not going to be any audience on site. Thank you very much for your participation today. And I hope that in these societies, we can have more rooms to talk about archive and museum. Since we are living in a capitalist societies, the Commoners Museum have presented you with different t-shirts, the political t-shirt and political meme t-shirt. You can purchase it. And we have like poster and we have t-shirt. Anyone want to sell that product souvenir? On next Friday and Saturday, Commoners Museum collaborate with Cross-Cultural Foundation. The Cross-Cultural Foundation did art therapy activities, and one of a remarkable collection is a painting from คุณบุ้ง Netiporn เสน่ห์สังคม คุณบุ้ง participate in the art therapies, and I don't know where is her painting, but Cross-Cultural Foundation have take the photos of คุณบุ้ง with the canvas with her therapies, so you can visit the exhibition. And of course we have like other activists, so you can see them not just as activists but as human beings that try to heal themselves using art therapies. So you can see the different perspective displayed to art. We can see them making speech or like a debatable speech, but let's see them on a different light. When they were out of the podium, what did they do? They are just like normal people like us. And so you can go to Jim Thompson 24-25 of May. It starts about 1 p.m. So you can go to Jim Thompson Museums. And Kun she also have her active exhibition. The Southern Border Province Museums and Archive Project have the Tak Bai exhibition at the Sirinthorn Anthropological Centers. You can visit from like Monday to Friday. The exhibition will be hosted until 31st of July. And you can have คุณเอกภพ คุณ March, who is also an art therapist from like Peaceful Days, to lead the embroideries activities and also talk about the issues in the Southern Border Province as well as the experience visiting this exhibition. You can also follow and subscribe to Deep South Museum. We have a panel on like non-mainstream museum seminars in July, and we will have another theme on memorializations. Our friends, Thai lawyer for human rights, host the 10 years anniversaries um, called the End of Justice. You can go to BACC, National Stadium BTS, from the 21st to 26th of July. Also, do not forget to click like our Commoners Museum on Facebook and other platform. I don't have anything to sell, but please enjoy my small collection. We will have like a walk through like these collections. And before wrapping up, I would like to thank our kind audience, the Ford, for providing these venues and host this event. And finally, our three panelists who offer very interesting perspective on archive and museum. Thank you very much for your participation, and goodbye and good evening for all of you. If you would like to follow the Ford's activities, please follow our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, the Ford Space. We will have various activities. Thank you and goodbye for